Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Got a new Cardfight Vanguard video for you guys today. If you guys were as excited as I was to watch this week's episode of the anime, you guys know we were in for a treat. So we knew from the episode that we got 2 weeks ago that today was going to be Hikari versus Akina, and shit got real. So, as I often do, I'm going to cover what happened in the episode, cover the fight itself, talk about some of the new cards and what they looks like they do. And yeah, if you guys enjoy this kind of content, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let's jump in and check it out. Editing Zafkill real quick. I'm throwing this back in the front. Forgot again, since it's been, an extra week, but assume that at the beginning of every turn, they draw their energy charge. They don't specifically mention that they do it, but just assume that they did it. Same with some effects, you'll see that they don't actually do. But let's jump back into the game. So the episode kicks off with Hikari actually having a nightmare about the accident that happened to her. We never got a whole lot of detail about the accident. We just know Hikari got hurt, Akina blamed himself, and Akina was taking care of her for the entire rest of their lives. We kind of knew that Hikari's wish had something to do with the accident. That, the way Akina always kind of caters to her is really where her problems are. She wants him to be able to live for himself. So we get a quick shot of Akina looking at Raziel, basically asking Raziel to lend him his strength. Then it jumps right into the intro, and then it goes over to the night of the fight. Akina's walking up to the venue, and he gets caught up by Now and Gabrielius. Gabrielius kind of blows by them, where Now kind of like talks to him to figure out if he's mentally prepared to fight Hikari. And as always, he's ready to do whatever he has to take care of his sister. And Now even mentions that she kind of understands where Hikari is coming from, because Akina does nothing for himself. Once everybody is at the venue, Masanori approaches the Destined ones that lost, and basically asks them if they realized that they were being mentally polluted. And they talk about how they felt while they were, I guess, being influenced by Sybilt, where they were still aware of who they were, and their desires are real desires that they have, but they couldn't stop themselves. She amplified what they already had. Hikari is shaking. She's nervous about having to play against Akina, and Kuon, like he does with all the other Destined ones, he kind of gives her a pep talk, basically saying that her wish is not wrong, and she becomes more determined to win. We get into the fight. We got the whole start of the Destined showdown, and we get to see the starters. Hikari's got a new starter called Gear Quetzal of Serping Distance. That's a name. And Akina, of course, has Wings of Aspiration Soul. Turn 1, Hikari gets to go first. Hikari rides Steam Mating Tiglat and uses its skill right away to get a new kind of marker. It's called a Destined Timepiece, and she sets it in the order zone. So we've seen a few cards like these. We actually saw one in the last episode with the auto mod gauge. Similar, you provide your grade 1, you get this Destined Timepiece. Turn 2, Akina goes. Akina rides Patrol of Gust Ventesta. Akina calls Painkiller Angel. He attacks with Ventesta. Hikari doesn't guard. Akina doesn't get a trigger. Hikari takes 1 damage. Akina attacks with Painkiller, and this time Hikari guards. Turns over. Damage is 1-0. Akina's in the lead. Turn 3, Hikari rides Life Cessation Colossus. That's a cool ass name. She uses its skill. She puts a card from her hand into her regress gauge and draws 2 cards. So this is where we kind of get to see what she's setting up for. So this Destined Timepiece allows her to get regress gauges, and her grade 3 kind of revolves around the regress gauges. Hikari calls I'm gonna butcher the name. Amini Ditana, and uses its skill to give 5k to her Vanguard. Hikari attacks with Colossus. Akina doesn't guard. Hikari gets no trigger. Akina takes 1 damage. Hikari attacks with Amina Ditana. Akina guards. Turns over. Damage is now 1-1. It's even. Turn 4. Akina rides Knight of Great Advance Ascensior and activates Ventesta's skill. When this unit is rode upon by Knight of Great Advance Ascensior, call this card to rear guard and soul charge 1. So he calls it to the back right. He calls Knight of Rendering Flash Caliber and uses its skill. Auto, when this unit is placed on rear guard, counter blast 1, soul blast 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, reveal it, call it to rear guard if it's a grade 2 or less unit, put it into your hand if it is not, shuffle your deck. With the skill, Akina calls Gargeon. He actually calls it behind Painkiller Angel on the other side, but then he swaps them. He attacks with Incensior. Hikari guards. Akina doesn't get a trigger. He attacks with Gargeon, boosted by Painkiller. Hikari doesn't guard. Hikari takes 1 damage. Akina uses Painkiller's Angel's skill. Auto rear guard at the end of the battle. This unit boosted. Soul Blast 1, retire this unit. Draw a card. Akina then attacks with Care Bear. This one Hikari guards. Turns over. Damage is now 2-1 with Akina in the lead. Turn 5. This is where stuff gets crazy. Hikari rides Destined 1 of Time Liel Odium. So Hikari plays the order Distorted Bane. This card does a lot. This is another card that her deck revolves around. She soul charges 1. She puts this card into her regress gauge and then gets a draw card, and Liel gets 10,000 power for the turn. Liel's skill: for every Distorted Bane that's in the regress gauge, the front row gains 5k. So as you can see, this order is really important, and as you get more of them, your power goes up. Hikari calls a Blaze Chimera and uses its skill. It lets you look at the top 5 and call 1. Now, as far as costs go for these cards, these two specifically, Distorted Bane and this card, one of them is going to be energy, one of them is going to be counterblast. We'll see it in a few because I got a shot of it. She only counterblasts 1 this entire turn. As before the Vanguard skill. So I'm assuming that one of them has an energy cost. I'm just not sure which one because they never really specify. Off the top 5, she calls another copy of a mini Ditana. Hikari attacks with one of her mini Ditanas. Akina guards. Hikari attacks with Liel Odium, and this is where we get to see Liel Odium's skill. She puts one of her rear guards into her regress gauge and gains triple drive. And then Amina Ditana, these names, it gives Liel 5k when it becomes a regress gauge. So yeah, so she basically gets rid of her rear guard, gives 5k to her Vanguard, and 1 extra drive. Akina doesn't guard, and Hikari goes off on the drive checks because she gets 2 criticals out of the 3 drive checks, giving both extra criticals to her Vanguard and her power to her other Amina Ditana. So Akina immediately takes 3 damage, and then Hikari attacks with her second Amina Ditana. Akina doesn't guard, and so Akina goes straight to 5. So at the end of this turn, Akina's at 5, Hikari's at 2. Obviously, Hikari's way in the lead. Turn 6, Akina rides the Faded One of Miracles, Raziel, uses Ascensior's skill. Auto, when this unit is rode upon by a grade 3 card with Raziel in its card name, choose up to 1 grade 2 or less card from your drop, call it to rear guard. Akina uses this skill and calls Hammer Break Knight Sadie. Akina calls Knight of Perspicacity. I don't know how to say that. Catelius, and he uses its skill. Auto, when this unit is placed on rear guard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Raziel in its card name, choose one of your units and it gets 5,000 power to the end of turn. If this unit was placed by your Vanguard's ability, it gets 10,000 power instead of 5,000 power. And then it also has, while it's in the back row rear guard, it can actually intercept from the back row as long as you have Raziel as a Vanguard. He gives the 5k to Raziel and then immediately uses Raziel's Divine skill. Active Vanguard Circle, Soul Blast 1, return all critical triggers from your drop to the deck, shuffle it, and this unit gets +1 drive until end of turn. And then of course you get the Miracle. Until the end of this fight, you cannot ride units without Raziel on their card name, and you get, when your damage check reveals a trigger unit, other than a heal, if your damage has 5 or more cards, choose a card from your damage zone and heal it, and then you lose this ability. So Akina sends back 3 critical triggers, gives his Vanguard triple drive, and then moves to his battle phase. Akina attacks with Care Bear, Hikari guards. Akina attacks with Sadie, Hikari guards. Akina attacks with Raziel and uses its on attack skill. Auto Vanguard, when this unit attacks, counterblast 1, choose up to 2 cards from your drop with different grades and a total grade less than or equal to the number of cards in your damage zone, call them to rear guard. He's at 5, so he calls a grade 2 and a grade 3. He calls Gigantic Masher and Knight of Bowstreaks Nilberis. Hikari doesn't guard, and Akina gets a critical on his triple drive, gives a critical to Raziel, the power to Nibiris, then he also gets a front trigger, so his front row gets stacked. Akina attacks with Gigantic Masher. Hikari doesn't guard, takes 1 damage, so now Hikari's up to 5. Akina then attacks with Nilberis. Hikari guards with a perfect guard, and then Akina uses Nilberis' skill. Auto rear guard, at the end of the battle, this unit attacks if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Raziel in its card name, Energy Blast 3. Put this unit into your soul, draw a card, the top card of your deck, put it to the top or bottom of your deck. He puts it on top, and Hikari immediately calls him out, saying that it's going to be a trigger on top, but that's not going to help him. Akina ends his turn. The damage is now 5-5, back to being even. And now we're going into Hikari's turn. But obviously, there's still some storyline, so we get some insight into what's driving Hikari. And basically, Hikari wants to change what happened on the day of the accident. She wants to use new Liel Odium's power to go back in time and change the past, because she feels like she is a mistake. Everything that's happened because of the accident, because of her, that her sin was that she stole time from her brother. That basically, instead of living his life, he spent all his time taking care of her. So she wants to change that, to change his fate, because in her mind, their fate was decided the day of that accident. So now we go into Hikari's next turn. Hikari doesn't Persona Ride. I'm surprised there's actually no Persona Rides in this entire fight. Hikari calls Brainwash Swirler. I'm assuming she told charges. This is one of those ones where they skip. Hikari plays another Distorted Bane and puts a copy of it into her regress gauge. Soul charges 1, draws a card, gives her Vanguard 10k. Hikari plays a Blaze Chimera again and uses its skill to call a new card, Anachronous Dragon. It's a grade 3. Hikari attacks with Anachronous Dragon and uses its skill. It gains 5k and retires Akina's Catelis, the grade 0. Akina doesn't guard, and he gets a trigger. Obviously, he stacked it. It's a 6 damage, activates Raziel's Miracle. Now his Vanguard has plus 10k for the rest of the turn. Hikari attacks with Liel and uses its skill. She puts Anachronous Dragon into the regress gauge and gains triple drive. Akina guards with a perfect guard. Hikari gets a heal trigger, heals 1 damage, and gives the power to Amina Ditana. Hikari uses Liel Odium's divine skill. We don't get to see what it is right away, but the cost of it was for her to discard 2 cards. And her regress gauge has to be at 5 or more. And nothing happens. And Akina's like, what's going on? That's it. Hikari attacks with Amina Ditana. Akina guards. Hikari enter turn. Akina starts planning what he's going to do. He says, I got to win. And then Hikari hits him with the truth. First off, the damage is now 5-4 with Hikari in the lead because of the heal trigger. And she says that his turn will never come again. So what Liel Odium's divine skill actually is that she rewinds time, quote unquote, to the beginning of Hikari's turn. Basically, she skips Akina's turn and goes back to Hikari's turn. Now, a couple reasons this is nuts is because she gets to restand the Vanguard, obviously. She gets to draw a card, so she gets an additional Vanguard attack. She gets an extra card to hand. The power that he gained from the trigger is now gone because it's a new turn. So it's not the same as having a restanding Vanguard. And basically, she gets a whole new set of rear guard attacks too, though she is missing one. And then we get to see the downsides of this skill. So turn 8, Hikari's second turn. There is no ride phase and there is no main phase. That's a huge deal. Liel is also forced to have drive -1. So this skill, while sounding crazy on paper, has a lot of downsides. And it takes a ridiculous setup because you need 5 cards in your regress gauge. But go straight to the battle phase. At the start of the battle phase, it turns out Anachronous Dragon has another skill when it's in the regress gauge. You can put a card from your drop into your regress gauge and you get to call Anachronous Dragon. So now she has her 3 attacks again. Hikari attacks with Amina Ditana. Hikari then attacks with Liel. She puts Amina Ditana into the regress gauge. Remember that Amina Ditana gives 5k back to Liel. Akina guards the Vanguard attack, but Hikari manages to get a draw trigger and pushes through Akina's guard, dealing Akina the final damage. So the final score is 6-4. Hikari wins. The Destined showdown as a whole is a draw, so now they have to have an additional match. Basically, both teams are going to select one representative for the fight, and whoever wins this last fight wins the Destined showdown. So Hikari immediately volunteers. She wants, to fight for her wish. All the Destined ones are like, cool, I'm good with it. And Akina is about to say, I'll fight her again. And then they hit us with the plot twist. Because out of nowhere comes future Hikari with the faded one of time, Liel Immorta. And I thought that was a fantastic way to end that episode. And our final fight of this arc is going to be Hikari versus Hikari. Leal Odium versus Leal Amorza. I'm hype. Next episode's gonna be fire. We're probably gonna get all these cards announced on Tuesday. So if you guys want to see me test this deck out, build it live, you guys know, come here to YouTube or twitch.tv/Zaffikel. Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My schedule has changed up a little bit because I actually have a new work schedule. So if you guys want to see that, be here. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode down in the comments. Let me know how you guys are feeling about Leal Odium and all her support. It seems fun, but I think it might be a little too gimmicky. It might have some issues with like speed, kind of like how Impaldio does with its auto mod gauges. But you guys will check me out on social media. Those links are down below. That is it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.